For May 13th to order. Would everyone like to stand and pledge allegiance to the flag?
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Madam Secretary, can we have the roll call?
just drop that all together. Charter Review Committee minutes, Tuesday, May 6, 2014. Present. Oh, I'm sorry, roll call. Danielle Cadu, Douglas, Crocker.
Here.
Drummer.
Here.
Eisenberg. Here. Jocelyn.
Here.
Parker. Here. Williams.
Danielle Cadu is excused today. Before we have the minutes read, I'd like to move that Danielle Cadu be excused for today. To move the second that Danielle be excused today. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Yes. Motion carried. Thank you.
Charter Review Committee minutes, Tuesday, May 6, 2014. Present were Daniel Cadu, Stephanie Douglas, Dwayne Cockrum, Tyrone Drummer, Elliot Eisenberg, Stanley Johnson, Amanda Parker, and Shadeen Williams. The meeting was opened at 6 o'clock p.m. with the Pledge of Allegiance. The minutes were read, and Stanley Johnson moved that the minutes be approved. As read, Amanda Parker second, the vote passed unanimously. Chair Drummer explained that because of the passing of his brother, Donald Houston was not present. Stanley Johnson moved that he be excused. Elliot Eisenberg second, the motion passed. Mr. Drummer stated that the mayor is supposed to attend the next meeting. Elliot Eisenberg discussed his assigned section, Article 10, Sections 1 through 3, and Article 11, franchises. Section 1. He stated that he had compared it with other charters and found them to be very close in language, almost verbatim. He raised the question about the public posting of ordinances. Todd Hunt stated that there are 5 locations listed in the ordinance as the locations for posting ordinances, resolution statements, etc., and that they are posted on the city's website as well. Elliot asked, was it really that relevant or that important to consider for change on listing additional places for posting? David Lynch suggested a letter be forwarded to council to consider an increase in the numbers rather than a change to the charter. Section 2, that there needs to be consistency in the number of the 5 votes. Todd Hunt stated that state law requires a supermajority for something major or emergency matter, that it takes away the right of referendums by citizens. Section 3, no noted changes, that it is the same as most other charters. Article 11 raised the issue of whether the word may should be changed to shall, which is on lines 4 and 6. What a franchise is was explained that it is permission to go through a public area. In prior times, it was granted to utility companies, gas, electric, etc. Now it is launched further to include cable companies as well. Next, Stanley Johnson discussed his assigned section, Article 4, Section 1, a section that was previously reviewed in prior discussion, term limits, gender uniformity, and the mayor's authority to hire its own staff, that the mayor needs latitude to be effective in continuity of the office. Council should not have a voice in that particular arena. Also, that the supermajority should be eliminated. He also raised concern about the mayor having contract authority. Danielle Cadu read from the revised code on the department heads that report to the mayor: finance, service, law, safety, engineering, recreation, and personal assistant. Service director of properties and city engineer are the only 2 department heads that have to have counsel to be terminated. A lengthy discussion was had on the mayor's authority. The question was asked whether the charter should be patterned after. I lost my thought. Chair Drummer stated that he would like the committee to bring to the table to the next meeting all suggestions and to start charting and grouping those suggestions in an effort to move closer for final language. The floor was open For public comments, there were none. The next meeting is May 13th, 2014, at 6 o'clock p.m. Stanley Johnson moved that the meeting be adjourned. Shadina Williams second. The meeting was adjourned at 6:58 p.m. Respectfully submitted, Stephanie Douglas. Interim.
Very good, very good. Are there any additional corrections to the minutes? Is there a motion that the minutes stand?
I make the motion.
Is there a second motion?
I'd second.
Okay, it's been moved and second that minutes be approved as read. All in favor? All opposed? Motion carried. Okay, very good. Today, we are tomorrow departmental input. We don't have anyone that's going to attend, but on the 20th, next Tuesday, the recreation director, Denise Spencer, she will be attending, and also Will Roberson. He's the, I guess, the owner of PC Alternative. They're the IT consultant to the city of Richmond Heights, and he's going to come and sit down with us and talk about IT, streamlining, transparency. So they will be here next week.
What's the director's name again?
Our name is Denise Spencer.
Denise Spencer. Okay.
Any questions or comments? So they will be attending our meeting next Tuesday. Okay. Today we want to try to put a lot on the board here. I think Shadina, you're prepared to do your section on the mayor.
Right. We've discussed a lot already about the mayor. I had Article 5, you guys, and I also start on page 11 and go into page 13. For the most part, the mayor already made a request that she starts in January versus what it is now. I did look at quite a few other cities, and even we looked at the state charter, and that is in line with starting in January. I mean, that would not be, actually the exception is probably what we do versus starting in January. And with most of the ones that I did look at. The only other concerns is the way that the executive powers read. The supermajority, again, seems to be an issue, okay?
Okay.
Is integrated into the charter at will versus not just when it is there was some concern that it was when it was by state constitution requires a supermajority. However, throughout we see that supermajority pops up quite often. So I would think that was something that we may need to look at, talk about. We discussed term limits. That's a part that comes up in here. You know, whether you're for them or against them, but that was a concern. The only other part that most of a lot of the other stuff, other than the majority, is in line with other cities. I didn't notice a lot that wasn't in line, with the exception of the removal. I'm not sure.
Where is that?
Page 13, you guys, section 8. I can see if you have a, I can see if there's some contention that the wording could be kind of difficult. You would hope that it wouldn't be, but because it's sort of more for a violation of his oath of office provided. I'm not, now for a crime, of course. but, you know, that, I wasn't sure how, that to me should be, I don't know if you wanna look at it, if we don't, but maybe a little more clarity to that, because, you know, you can be sick and violate an oath one day, so that's not, I'm not sure that, and then the fact that, here we go again, those 5 council persons have the right to discharge the mayor, well, they have to give a written notice and all of that, but the people put the mayor in, so I'm not sure, that was my only, and that's only an issue, you know, if you have a contentious spirit.
So I'll turn to Todd for some type of clarity on Section 8 removal, if there's.
Well, obviously, and I think it's just been said, that when you talk about conviction while in office of a crime involving moral turpitude, there are felonies and misdemeanors that involve moral turpitude, so that's pretty well defined. Disqualification while in office, there are certain qualifications you have to make. You have to live in the city, for example, so that's pretty clear too. So those are really the qualifications and conditions of being mayor. I think you're right, the violation of his oath of office. That's pretty, the oath of office, which I can read to you because it is in the charter as I recall, is on the last page, section 6, every elected official shall, before entering the duties of office, take an oath that he will in all respects faithfully discharge the duty of his office. Profess loyalty to the Constitution of the United States, Constitution of the State of Ohio, and to uphold the charter and all laws of the municipality. That's essentially the same oath that's prescribed in the Ohio Revised Code. Now, trying to piece and parse whether somebody has actually faithfully discharged the duties of his office is pretty difficult. The other way that there is removal is to file an action in probate court, which is actually a lawsuit based on malfeasance, misfeasance, and nonfeasance, and that's under the Ohio Revised Code. So that sort of gets to the issue of fulfilling the duties of the office. And so I guess what I'm saying is that I'm not sure how to define more clearly violation of oath of office, other than to say misfeasance, nonfeasance, malfeasance. And that, of course, can be done through filing an action and having the judge actually decide that issue.
Much of my remarks are in accord with Todd's, but that's because we've known each other for so long and have practiced in this area for so long. The only asterisk I would put as relates to the questions about Section 8 is that it does say it requires the concurrence of 5 members of council. So I think that section operates independent of whether or not there's a court action. Having said that, then, the difficulty is, and I heard somebody whisper the word, that seems subjective. I heard that phrase, somebody say that. If 5 members of city council believe that the mayor wearing a red suit is in violation of oath of office, and they vote that way, I think this charter, based on the fact that it's a determination of council, it has the authority to do that. Now, the mayor could, of course, challenge that, I think, but
there'd have to be a law that says the mayor cannot wear a red suit.
well, here's the thing. The oath of office, it says, in all respects, faithfully
Right.
discharge the
That's
oath
how
of
I was-
office.
That's how I interpret
I'm
that.
using sort of an extreme example, but my
Right.
point is that the level of subjectivity,
Right.
what one person considers to be a faithful discharge, may not be considered faithful discharge to another. And so my concern is that there, I'm almost saying as a concern, sort of the explanation of the phraseology that you and Todd have been discussing is that there's an extremely high level of subjectivity. To remove the president, we all know this phrase, high crimes and misdemeanors. So somebody's got to prove something, but if 5 members of council believe that the mayor has not faithfully discharged his or her duties, it certainly does create a very high level of subjectivity and potential ambiguity, and
Now, there
that's
is,
what I see.
yeah, you're right, Dave, there is some ambiguity there for certain. There is due process provided here, the notification of charges, and an opportunity to be heard, present evidence, examine witnesses who are, obviously have to be brought in support of the charge. And I would say, based on this, that the mayor would then have the right of appeal to common police court from such a proceeding.
May I, and correct me if I'm wrong, my understanding though is now we can have a situation where our mayor has been put out of office by council, and now instead of running the city, the time is utilized defending whether or not there was a breach or a violation of office. Based on this, that was my interpretation. So it's almost guilty until you prove that you're not. So now the mayor's time is tied up. Am
Well-
I correct for my interpretation of that?
That's a possibility.
Yeah, I would think that contract that would happen. The one thing about the due process here, the jury is the city council
Right,
under this phraseology.
judge and jury.
Well,
And executioner.
Good point, John. Good point.
historically, by the way, I don't think that this has been exercised.
Well, there's a whole lot of historical.
Right.
things there.
You have another problem if all politicians lie. You got a problem with me.
Oh, Mr. Johnson?
I would venture to say yes.
I object.
Not a politician.
Sustained.
Well, that's true.
Well, so.
We're all
that's-
politicians.
yeah. So that's what I would like to, those were things that I noticed with this section for the committee.
I do have one question or comment. If we do make a change to, I forgot to her number of days in office, terms in section 1 from the December to January, would that not impact the same for council? Because they take office on December 1st also. So if we decide to amend it where the mayor takes office in January, for sake of consistency, wouldn't we have to change it for council? Or would that for ease of,
You don't have to, but it certainly makes sense.
It makes sense. It does. I think that's important. But in between there, you have a November election. It's December 1st now.
December 1st.
Now we're saying January 1st. There should be some language to, in terms of cohesion of transfer of duties for council members as well as the mayor that's transferring out. And some legality in terms of bills, treasury, of course we have a finance director, but turning the keys over properly.
transition?
Yeah. They may hate one another's guts, but the fact is that you have a duty to run the city, and the bills have to be paid in between. laws of the municipality have to be carried out, right? So who's responsible? And there should be some language to cover that November election to January 1st.
There's some language now that addresses that earlier on, even for that window. There's some language in
Okay.
here that addresses that. Now, I don't know if it's as strong or how it would be effective if that changes, but
Mhm.
there was some
Oh.
language. When, I thought I read something about even before they take over.
Under council or mayor?
Isn't there was some language, I thought I read it.
I don't know.
I don't recall that.
I thought when we were talking about the mayor taking over or what. There's some niceties that I thought I read.
If it's in there, we could piggyback on it, that's for sure. And put it in the right place.
Right. Okay, why don't we,
We'll try to find it.
yeah, we'll look at it, continue to try to find that part. Okay, I'd just like to notify each one of the committee members that this is an ordinance of the city of Richmond Heights. This is the first and council copy, and we have to keep this upstairs in the mayor's office. If I'm correct, Todd, this is the ordinance.
This is the ordinance, the codified ordinance.
Codified ordinance. There's more ordinance inside of this three-ring binder than is on the website, right?
Those should all be on the website.
Also on the website.
Yeah.
But if you want to look at a hard copy and Xerox, it'll be located upstairs.
It
So I just
is, yes, it is updated once a year. We have a codifier that we hire to bring it up to date and also make it consistent with state law with respect to the criminal provisions of the code. So if you need any updates during the year, you have to go through the legislation of council, which is also on the website, to determine what amendments have been made during that year period, and then each year it's updated, so. Usually it's in the springtime, around this time of year it's updated.
So this it also has a tab on each section, so feel free, you can make appointment with Brandy, the mayor's assistant, and you can go upstairs and review this, but this copy must stay in the mayor's office. I have a signed copy by the mayor just to bring it downstairs. Plus a signed copy that I'll give it back to you. So, okay. Is everyone prepared with their hard copy to start putting any of your amendments or your comments on the board? We have a volunteer
I'll go first.
writer.
Okay.
Oh, right.
Yeah, we have a writer, a volunteer writer. What should I pick? Well, we know it's not gonna be Stephanie. Gentlemen?
I can scribble a little bit, I'm not good.
Okay, Dwayne,
Okay.
and we can alternate.
All right,
We won't keep you up there. So I think Dwayne is gonna start with his section,
yeah.
because he has to leave.
Never turn down a volunteer.
Absolutely.
Like church.
I don't have enough copies, you have a copy.
I have one copy here.
Section.
It's okay.
I can run upstairs while you're doing this.
Yeah,
Make some copies.
yeah.
Okay.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you, Dave.
Do you want to make anything for me too? Because this is of everybody that presented. It's their,
Sheesh, how did you get in?
we may have to.
Well, look at me.
Yeah, we're gonna start Dwayne
He's
at the
gonna be
lead.
happy.
And this isn't complete, I had other thoughts, and after I ran it off, well, okay. But it's section 6, I'm sorry, Article 6, Section 2. And it kind of went through all the offices that the mayor appoints and has responsibility for. And I just put Director of Law, Director of Finance, Director of Recreation, Chief of Police, Fire Chief, Director of Service, Commissioner of Building, Zoning, and Housing. All these are appointed by the mayor. But there's nothing there to say in terms of how they report, other than through council and the mayor. But there's language that's needed there, and I just started thinking about a little bit of language, but I'm sure Todd, you guys could probably come up with something else better than I have. I said, shall report directly to the mayor and carry out the laws and duties of the municipality ethically and while providing guidance, collaboration to council consistently. And then something that notes that the mayor's direct reports are at will and serves at the pleasure of the mayor and can be released. I thought about dismissed / terminated. All can be terminated for cause. And actually on page 21, I missed. The mayor may at any time suspend a commissioner. Speaks of removal for commissioner there, for inefficiency, neglect, and these things Todd talked about too. Inefficiency, neglect of duty, malfeasance, misfeasance, nonfeasance in office, incapacity or incompetency, and that's a very important clause to me, and should be included directly after, somewhere in section, Article 6, Section 2, with the language that says everyone reports to the mayor. Council is not necessarily secondary, but you report to the mayor. And you have to carry out the responsibilities and duties of the city, right?
Right, sure.
In accordance to the law and policy, and coordinate and collaborate with council to take the city forward. But you report to the mayor. So that's Section 2, and I think that kind of brings Section 2 together. But there's a piece in the finance area that I had issue with, and
May I ask questions? Because I'm not sure exactly what you're saying. When it comes to I know you said report, but when you come to the removal, we still have the 5 and 2. So you're saying
the 5 and 2, I didn't address that only because I think it's difficult to have a majority unless, what's the best way to put it? I think it should be 4-7.
Okay, simple majority.
Simple majority.
But when it comes to removal, so because
In
based on this,
terms of removal,
she can't-
that's
the
the other
mayor-
piece.
the mayor in this city can't remove anyone.
Yeah,
I'm saying she can.
she can remove anyone except, and don't ask me why, because it happened a long time ago, the city engineer and the service director.
But
For
it's
some
not
reason, it
final
requires a
unless
5-2 vote. Everyone else, other than civil servants, which are the 2 chiefs, can be fired for any reason or no reason at any time.
Can you put that clause in there, the simple majority? Or, actually, a simple majority won't override the mayor. The deed is done, they've been terminated. Am I correct on that?
That's correct.
Yeah.
Okay, now, wait a minute, because I'm confused.
We're,
I thought that yes, the mayor can tell anyone that they're terminated, with the exception of our civil service. I got that, that's due cause. I'm all on that.
you have to have.
But although the mayor in Richmond Heights can do that, but the council can then override it, or,
No. Council cannot override.
but then the council cannot.
For
Except
termination,
for-
right?
Right.
Termination.
Except for the city engineer,
Got it, okay.
and the service director, which for whatever reason requires a supermajority.
And,
Is the service director outsourced like the engineer?
No.
no,
No,
as a matter of fact, our service director is gonna retire at the end of this month.
Yeah, and the mayor will have appointing authority on that, but the appointment has to be approved by a 4 majority. But not the removal for the service director would be a 5 to
Would be
2
five.
vote, which I cannot explain other than something happened more than 20 years ago that caused a charter revision of all things for only the service director and the city engineer.
If you put on your sheet, simple majority, and include the service director, and I have director of engineering in there too, so I have both in there.
Dwayne, can I just comment on the
Yeah.
process of hiring? We're saying that she needs a majority or supermajority
Only a majority
Only
to approve
to
the hiring.
approve the hiring.
And that only involves directors.
Okay, so anyone under the directors, they're hired by the directors,
No, they're hired by the mayor,
They're hired by the mayor,
all the way down to the lowest labor,
okay.
part-time summer help in the service department, the mayor hires, or lifeguard.
My question is if there's an interviewing team that's interviewing qualified candidates, and this interviewing team consistently come up with very intelligent, highly motivated, educated individuals, and this has nothing to do with council, why would the mayor need to have council approval to hire?
She doesn't, only department,
I'm talking on the department,
only department
the
heads.
department heads. Why would she need the approval, or the mayor would need the approval of council to hire if she went through the process of interviewing, have an interviewing team, and that team makes suggestions, and then these are the most qualified candidates? What would be a reason that the council would, a majority, turn down these candidates?
Well, you're describing the process that we kind of have rolled up right now. I don't know what happened in the past or what the past practices were, but for the department heads, such as our recreation director, there was a team of 4 of us, and myself, Terry Butler, Marlene Gamber, and Mrs. Urson. She's a manager over at University Hospitals. And so after going through a cycle of interviews, we sent the best 2 candidates to the mayor and to the council president for approval. So I don't know what the past was, but that seemed to work for Richmond Heights I think, you know, several on 2 occasions that candidate showed up at the council meeting, and I think after the second meeting she was approved, if I'm not mistaken. So it's yeah, and in terms of the secretary, there were 2 candidates that were sent up, and the mayor selected one, and that was kind of it. But that procedure, that process seems to work.
Okay.
When a member of council is involved, I think that's important.
Those were the questions I was going to ask. That continue to have council involved, but it seems the process that I am seeing it meet as as we speak.
Mm-hmm.
There's a process that would work in any organization, because you have a cross-function of people who are doing the interviews.
Yeah.
So you're grabbing the best candidates to present to a legislative body. And my concern is that, what if we send a qualified, or the body sends a qualified candidate up, and for some reason, they're just, you know,
Well, if there's a wild hair somewhere, excuse the expression, but I would stand up on that one. After, and just share my opinion.
okay.
Because I think the committee that we have are pretty intelligent people. They live here in the city, they work here in the city, a couple of them. One young lady, Mrs. Gamber, she has 40 years, more years, well, equal to my years in human resources at the clinic, so.
So based on your opinion, as you've been involved in it, that system is working?
Right now, it's pretty sufficient. I think, we're calling on a lot of people to help us. And they're putting a lot of time in, but there's other people to call on too that will be glad to help.
Can we back up for a second? Peter, I didn't understand part of what you were, back up again. I thought you were asking, or asking the question, why does council have to approve these positions if the mayor is selecting a qualified applicant for it? Am I wrong, or is that what you were asking?
That was the question.
That's the question.
Okay.
Yeah,
And
that's the
truthfully, I
question.
think what you call it is balance of power and lack of trust.
Okay.
I mean, truthfully,
So
I don't know
right,
how else to say.
so right now we have a majority, which would be 4-3, right? Just
Right now, 4 and 3.
4-3.
It calls for director 5 out of 7.
5 and 7. 5 out of the 7.
That's only for termination.
For termination.
Termination, right, so.
I get it
Two.
backwards. I get it backwards.
Of two of the directors, and no one else.
Yeah.
Now,
So-
I would like to think I'm as important as the city
Absolutely, or
engineer
more.
or the
Yeah.
service director,
Service.
and I think the finance director probably would like to think that too, but
Really, it should be
It's-
4 of 7.
Yeah.
A simple
Okay.
majority
Okay, can I
across the board.
just saying that for termination,
throw something else out there as far as the hiring process?
there isn't any council.
Why, my thought process would be,
You want that,
and the reason I brought up the individual who's doing the interviews is, why can't it be 3 of the mayor's pick and 2 of the council pick? You know, we have 3 people who the mayor has, sat down to say, okay, I want you to take a look at these candidates and give us your blessing. And then the 2 council people sit with the 3 individuals who has interviewed the candidates and came up with the best 2. And then the 5 of them sit down and go over. I just have a problem with the,
That kind of
I have-
extends,
Yeah, probably
extends
what
the.
you're saying.
Yeah.
okay, go ahead.
Because first things, if we have a committee
Mhm.
whose function is to go through, screen out the best candidates. Now, what you're saying is you're throwing a fly in a buttermilk now because now it becomes political. So now I want our 2 that did not, but listen what you're saying, if I'm understanding you correctly. We have a team
Right.
who, for all practical purposes, these people are impartial.
Right.
They have one interest, the best candidates for
Right.
Richmond Heights,
Right,
period.
right.
So they are the team that's already doing the work. They're interviewing, they're screening, they have the resumes. So now, why do we need council or any other external, internal political group to throw in an additional people when the team has already come up with the best candidates? So what would be the purpose of that except to cause confusion?
What my position on is just to have council involvement from some level.
Council gets to vote.
Yeah, and they also interview.
Okay.
Yeah, they get to
Yeah,
vote in it.
for instance, the recreation director Dave Roche interviewed
Okay.
the two people. And his thoughts got back to council. The candidate was introduced to council, and the vote council, I think it was 100% the vote. What I just described to you in terms of the search committee is carried on in corporations, but colleges, universities.
Stan?
I think it's a little interesting. I don't think there's anything in the charter that even says anything about a search committee.
That's the problem.
That's number
Well,
one.
that's what he's getting to.
That's number one.
Okay.
And number two, if you have a search committee and the council wants to present somebody that they think is qualified, why wouldn't they all just go to the same search committee? There's no sense in having 3 here and 2 here. It doesn't
Just to
matter.
throw those out, just to throw that out on the table.
Now, how do we integrate the search committee into the charter is the issue.
That's
Do you?
language
I would
that should
say,
follow
yeah.
appointment or
Right, well, the mayor gets to select the search committee, just like she does the charter
Yeah.
review. The mayor gets to,
Yeah.
I mean, every mayor should have that, but the mayor gets to select
she
the search.
chooses to
committee.
choose something. Yeah.
He or she, you know, when I say the mayor, I'm,
That's
you
good.
know, yeah, the mayor gets to select, nominate a search committee.
Okay.
Does any other, I didn't really look at that. Does anyone else have language like that in any of the other,
I don't think so.
things
I didn't see it in Linders, I didn't see it in Mayfield.
I didn't notice any of that, I wasn't looking.
But I think she has the
Say
right
it,
to
what
do
you
that
say?
anyway.
That I have not.
Well, she's got the right.
Charter.
But it's.
Well,
It's
but
just
she,
anyway.
Oh, that's-
all she is doing is making her job simpler
Like,
by setting up a search committee. You know, she's just made her job that much simpler. You know, she doesn't have to take the time to interview all these people. She's got 4 or 5 people on the committee, and they make a decision as to who the 2 best are, and let her rip. Either right or
And
wrong.
there's times when you send no one.
Yeah,
The interview process was a bust, you have to start all over again. To
right.
find qualified people.
As a mayor, how did you handle it? You think?
Well, the search committee concept was one that I implemented sometimes, but sometimes not, because of publication, in order to try to find qualified candidates to begin with. But I will have to tell you, in accord with Todd, I have not seen language for search committee integrated into any municipal charter. And that doesn't mean one can't be formed, but it's just that it's not in the charter. I think a number of cities, for high-profile positions, have established search committees, but they haven't made it part of their charter. Either the mayor appoints search committee, or the mayor gets together with the council president, and they can put one together without even passage of an ordinance or a charter change, because it doesn't necessarily require implementation of law in order to create a search committee to begin with.
I agree with Dave, I've never seen it in a charter, I've never seen it in an ordinance, a municipal ordinance. But on occasion, chief executive officers of political subdivisions do that. It's most common, I think, when someone has just taken office and they have form a committee to help them fill slots that they wish to fill.
I will also note that in the educational area, boards of education frequently form a search committee in order to obtain a new superintendent. That's what I see it most frequently used on the governmental side.
And it really leaves it up to the discretion of the chief executive officer whether they want to implement that or not. And so,
Can I make a suggestion to our committee? I don't think we should be discussing the mayor as gender specific. I think it's the mayor.
Yeah.
And I don't think it's, because it's what we're talking about, are changes to, recommendation for changes to the charter for the betterment of the city of Richmond Heights. And whether it be Mayor Headen or Joe Fabitz, who's mayor, or anybody else at any given time. I don't want it to seem like this is about Mayor Headen. I think what our job and responsibility is to present in a non-gender specific way the mayor,
Yeah.
whether it be a he or a she or any.
So,
Exactly. But, so, well, we got some things to work on. This is good.
Yeah.
I like this.
We have more coming.
I know.
Oh, yeah, a lot more.
A lot of dialogue.
We're talking to our finance director, he brought up some things in terms of the public bidding, and that's on the second page there. Public bidding is required of net expenditure of more than $25,000, that's in the charter. I put it at $20,000 as a suggestion. And, I'm sorry.
I was gonna make a comment, but I'll wait, I'm sorry.
As a suggestion, lowest and best bid. And I think there should be a clause to include a clause to include minority-owned businesses will be searched out. Then there's a piece on page 22.
Yeah, bidding.
Yeah. If you go to bidding, maybe it's right after financial director.
Page 15.
Financial director.
Public bidding.
Yeah, public bidding.
15.
It's 25. It's page 15. It's $25,000. I think we should lower the ceiling to bring things back to the city, and to the recommendation and collaboration of the financial director, the mayor, and council. The finance director sat here and said departments were just going out and doing a lot of things they wanted to do. They checked the budget. I send in a check sheet to the finance director, he checks it off, but the purchases are underway. We may even want to include a supply chain or purchasing kind of person that would coordinate all the purchases for the several departments that we have. And I'm not just talking pens and pencils and sheets of paper, although that can amount to a lot of money. A lot of things go out the door come Christmas time and holiday time, so you need somebody to keep track of what's going on, right? And someone that understands purchasing in bulk and negotiating good contracts. And so we had an example. We had an emergency vote right here in the room for computers. Remember? That was $20,000, $30,000, right? So we knew that we needed new computers. We knew months in advance that we had to get this done. So we searched out somebody to help us, and that's okay, right? But we should have put that out to public bid and found somebody that was going to take care of the city of Richmond Heights, which we probably did. I don't know. But the fact is, go ahead, Tom.
In that particular purchase, even though it was over 25,000, we do have in our charter an exception. And that is for cooperative purchasing either through other governmental entities, so that the state of Ohio's gone out for bids, and then we piggyback on that, as well as really all the political subdivisions in Ohio can do that.
Yep.
And get the best deal on computers based on the bid that the state obtains. And if a lot of times we'll go out and we'll see what that lowest bid was in the state contract, and we will actually find someone who's less than that. And so we don't go out to public bid, even if it's over 25,000, because the charter permits us to do that.
Well, that was the other piece I hit on, was the charter and the waiver of the requirement. Because I think that should be lowered. The doorstop should say $20,000. I'm just saying, we need an opportunity to bring it back in for a while and watch where we're spending money. You know, we're always talking about raising taxes, but and having access to spend dollars. Well, but it's after thorough review with the finance director and the mayor and joint approval of council that you go out and make these things happen that Todd has described. Not a problem. I think we're in the right course, but I think it's a higher collaboration before we go out and spend a buck.
Now, correct me, my understanding, first of all, I think that lowering it will cost the city more money. And my understanding, it wasn't because of the amount that was required for bidding, that there was a problem. My understanding was that there was no procedures in place or followed through. So you could have the bidding start at $10,000, but if there's no internal housekeeping and procedures, that's not going to matter. And it just costs us more money to have to,
Open it up.
yes.
We do have procedures we have to follow for competitive bidding. We follow state statute because we have no ordinances that govern it, so we have to follow the state statute. And advertise, once a week for 2 consecutive weeks in a newspaper of general circulation, et cetera, et cetera. So we do have procedures for competitive bidding. I will add also that the state limit now for municipal corporations is 50,000. We've been at 25 for quite some time now. My recommendation, and as I recall Jeff Smock's recommendation, was that we give the mayor some discretion, and neither one of us gave an amount, but some discretion to actually contract without council approval up to a certain amount. Of course, council has had to have appropriated the funds necessary for the purchase of the contract, but at least so we don't have to take every $500, $300, or $1,500 contract through council and have to wait 2 weeks for those purchases or whatever it is.
Just a little point of order, that is that the charter currently says that your bidding requirements, although they don't exist in the current ordinance, can be set by the city council. So you could theoretically consolidate your ideas, communicate with council, and ask council to approve an ordinance, because it is odd when you look at your charter, it says, bidding shall be done the way council says. And you go look and see what, if council has prescribed orders. They haven't done so, and there's nothing wrong with that. But if you're going to come up with some parameters, city council has the authority under the existing charter to create those parameters right now, and they could do so. This business about the minority bidding and things of that nature could be implemented without necessarily changing the charter to achieve that.
I can tell you how everything is done. Any contract, whether it's brought by a director or the mayor, and usually the directors have coordinated with the mayor, it's usually taken to a committee of council. The committee discusses it, it goes to finance committee, and finance committee makes a recommendation to the full council reviews it and passes a resolution authorizing the contract. That can be quite cumbersome if you've got to make an immediate purchase of something. And the way that has happened is, for example, it's happened a few times in the last several months, and over the last 20 years I've been here, if a purchase needs to be made, it needs to be made quickly. For example, you have a great price on something that is going to go away if you don't act quickly. The mayor will ask me to draft a resolution. I will do that on a Thursday, Friday, before the council meeting on Tuesday. It will go out to council with their agenda, which usually goes out on a Saturday, Friday night, Saturday. So they've had it for 3 or 4 days. They've seen the resolution, what the contract's for, the amount of the contract, and then it goes to the committee of the whole on Tuesday night before the regular meeting, and 7 people debate it. The mayor presents their reasons for the contract, or the director that it affects gives and then they decide whether they wanna vote on it that night or they wanna hold it for another 2 weeks. Most times it gets passed that night because the purchase needs to be made, everybody agrees. That's how it's happened for the last 20 years from my perspective, and including the last 4 or 5 months.
Just a general conversation. One of my notes that I made when I first read through the charter regarding this is where it says, shall be made to the lowest and best bidder. You know, I was in business for many, 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 many years, and lowest doesn't always mean best, and lowest doesn't mean best terms, and sometimes there are things that come into play that are more important than, you know.
Now, wait, that's a great observation, and that's why we have the standard lowest and best. It's not always the lowest, it's the best. So this gives discretion to the city to award a contract that's not the lowest, if it's not the best contract.
See, I didn't interpret it that way.
That's how the
But
law
I'm
is
not an
interpreted in Ohio. Now, the other standard that's in Ohio law is lowest responsible. Now, that opens up a real can of worms as to who is responsible, who isn't, and it's very subjective. Best is subjective too, but as long as you have lowest responsible, as long as that contractor can say, hey, I'm responsible, I don't have any lawsuits against me pending, I have not reneged on a public contract, and I'm responsible, I should get the contract. State law is lowest responsible. Most charters are lowest and best.
And I've seen that especially in essential service contracts historically throughout the state. So let's say you're out on a trash pickup contract. Well, trash pickup is pretty essential to the city. So you've got a bid from Browning Forest, Waste Management, and Joe's Carpet Store and Trash Pickup Company. But evaluating experience in essential service areas is something the city has a right to do subjectively, because the mayor and the city council are charged with protecting the safety and welfare of the citizens. And creating levels of risk based on inexperience of a bidder, even if of a lowest bidder, is the kind of thing that you probably have a moral obligation, and certainly a legal obligation to take into account.
Okay, thank you. And Todd, thank you. Do we have anyone else that's ready to roll out there? Suggestions? If not, I'll do the.
Presenters?
All right.
Oh, well, everybody has a copy.
Okay.
Yeah. Did you get a copy? Yeah,
You want
everybody
a
has a copy.
copy?
This is just a summation of the suggestions and recommendations made by all those who presented to us. First one is, our law director, Todd Hunt, as he just explained the process of how, the contract is approved and signed.
It's page 2.
Oh, okay. Wait, that's all right.
Oh, those are out of order.
That's okay.
Oh.
That's okay, I'm ready.
Okay, well,
Sorry.
actually, the first one is Mayor Headen, but
Okay.
if you find that, we'll start with her, because she was the first presenter. Which was Article 5, Section 1, the mayor. And her presentation was for changing the swearing-in date, extending the length of period, and being sworn in on January 1 following the November election. The next presenter was, I believe, Council President David Roach. Article 5, Section 1, the mayor. His comment was he would rather not see the lame duck period extended. His reasoning being that the officials that haven't voted out would still be making decisions for the city, which is not in line with the latest vote of the electorate. Pretty much that the electorate has voted a new person in, so they should get the benefit of that person taking office as soon as possible. The next one, Todd Hunt, who presented, and again, reiterated this evening on the tedious procedure of trying to get a contract through council and signed, that the mayor should have some contract authority for signing. There isn't an established or recommended amount as of yet, but the mayor should have the flexibility of being able to sign off on contracts at a certain level, dollar level. Finance Director Jeff Smock presented Article 4, Section 9, powers, and his recommendation was the same as that of the Law Director. So obviously, this seems to be like a pattern developing here that the mayor should have some kind of signing authority on contracts at a specific level. Councilperson Starkey Morgan presented, and her only suggestion or recommendation was to see specific changes to the reading of the majority on council, stating that there needs to be consistency. And there is another page. I didn't get them all.
You know, you have the chief of police.
Yeah, the chief of police. Do you have that, Todd?
Yes,
Oh.
I have, well, the copy I got from Dave didn't have all the pages.
Oh, okay.
Here, take mine.
I guess, well,
Chief of
Chief of Police, Article 6, Section 4C, Department of Public Safety, and what he wanted to see changed was that in-house personnel who have been properly trained up through the ranks be able to apply for a position that becomes available, and to change political wording from either city or municipality to political subdivision of a state. And I think that was it. I think.
You have some more out on President Rowe.
Oh, he had two, the runoff election, back to Council President's presentation. His presentation also included a recommendation for runoff election, and the exact verbiage of what he presented is on here, so I don't need to read it. It's on there.
I don't have that one.
You don't have that one? Okay, he mixed up my pages.
I have them all mixed up.
He mixed up all my pages.
Can't
There should be
have
4
everything. You got
pages.
4 pages.
Yeah, there are 4 pages, they're all mixed up. So, sorry.
Okay.
Yeah. That's it, I wouldn't copy it.
We'll get the rest of it next week.
Yeah, I'll reprint them and have everybody a good clean copy on next week, because there are 4 pages. Mhm. And he has 4. Yep.
You want David up, yeah.
Okay, yeah, so it should be, the mayor presented first, and she's on a page by herself. Council President Rhodes presented, and he is on a page that continues over to, because he had another one, appointment, the Director of Finance shall be appointed by the mayor with the approval of the majority of the council, may be removed from office by the mayor with the concurrence of 5 members of council. And his reasoning was that concerns about the mayor having the ability and authority to be able to solely hire and terminate staff. So I don't know if you all have that one.
And Linton.
He didn't really,
No, he didn't have any.
he didn't have any recommendations. I only put on here those who actually presented suggestions and or recommendations. Those who just came and talked, they're not on here, because it was just a conversation.
Had no
Or
suggestion.
had no suggestions. So yeah, these are the 4 pages.
Please,
Those are the
please
4 pages.
fire those qualifications if they were out
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's, I don't think you have that page. That,
No.
yeah. I'll reprint them in order.
And there was one addition, Mr. Hunt had asked that we include number of years as a attorney for the qualifications.
Oh,
of
the
law director.
qualifications, okay.
I did suggest that verbally.
Mhm,
Yeah,
okay.
that really.
So
Yeah.
a lot of charters will have a 5-year requirement.
Mhm. Okay, I'll add that in when I reprint this.
What you see here, I mean, what I have on the board here, is not that great. I'm just trying to put down, just the, a couple words from Dwayne and also from our interviewees. I'll write write it up better, I'm just trying to write it in as we speak. So, do we have anyone else that would like to present theirs at this moment? No, we don't have time. I know everybody looking at the clock. I know everyone looking at the clock.
That clock is really.
I do I know it's 7:04, but I want to thank everyone for your participation. This was good. We're gonna get deeper into these, a lot of discussions, a lot of dialogue. Again, next week we'll have 2 interviewees, Will Robinson and Denise Spencer. So, should be interesting. Yeah, should be interesting. Are there?
You may have heard that before.
It's been first moved and meeting be adjourned, the second. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? The meeting is adjourned.